A century of voices from whispers to screams. The journey of the telephone is a tale of innovation, connection, and sometimes eerie encounters. The year was 1876, a time when communication was limited to letters and face-to-face conversations. The world was on the brink of a revolution. Alexander Graham Bell, a visionary inventor, uttered those famous words, "Mr. Watson, come here, I want to see you." These words marked the dawn of a new era. With that, the telephone was born. It was a clunky device, far from the sleek gadgets we use today, but it was a marvel of its time. Over the decades, the telephone evolved, from rotary dials to push buttons, from landlines to cordless phones, and finally to the smartphones we hold today. Each transformation brought us closer, making the world feel smaller. Today, we can reach across continents with crystal clear clarity. Business deals are made, friendships are maintained, and families stay connected, all with a simple touch of a button. We take for granted this ability to connect instantly, to hear the voices of loved ones near and far. It's a luxury that has become a necessity in our modern lives. But what happens when those voices are no longer of this world? The telephone, a device meant to connect the living, sometimes becomes a bridge to the unknown. There are countless stories of people receiving calls from the deceased. These ghostly calls often come with messages, warnings, or simply the eerie sound of silence. Some dismiss these stories as mere coincidences or tricks of the mind, but for those who have experienced it, the fear is all too real. In the early 20th century, seances and spiritualism were popular. People believed they could communicate with the dead through various means, including the telephone. Today, paranormal investigators use advanced technology to try and capture these ghostly communications. From EVP recordings to ghost hunting apps, the quest to connect with the other side continues. Whether you believe in the supernatural or not, the telephone remains a powerful symbol of connection. From whispers to screams, it has bridged the gap between worlds, both seen and unseen. Echoes from the void when the dead dial. When the dead dial, imagine the chilling sensation of hearing a phone ring in the dead of night, only to find no one on the other end, or worse, a voice you recognize but know shouldn't be there. The idea of receiving a phone call from someone who has passed away is unsettling, to say the least. It's a concept that sends shivers down the spine and raises the hair on the back of your neck. The mere thought of it can make your heart race and your mind whirl with questions. Yet there are countless accounts of these so-called dead calls. Stories from all over the world, spanning decades, tell of phones ringing with no logical explanation. People have reported hearing the voices of their deceased loved ones, sometimes delivering messages, other times simply calling out their names. Are they merely glitches in the system, remnants of energy left behind? Could it be that these calls are nothing more than electronic anomalies, the result of crossed wires or technical malfunctions? Or is there something more profound at play, something that science has yet to explain? Or could they be something more? Could these calls be the desperate attempts of those who have crossed over to reach back to the living? Are they trying to communicate unfinished business, or perhaps seeking closure from beyond the grave? Could they be the desperate attempts of those who have crossed over to reach back to the living? These calls often come at significant moments, such as anniversaries or birthdays, leading some to believe that the deceased are trying to make contact during times of emotional importance. These calls defy logical explanation. They challenge our understanding of life and death and the boundaries between the two. The phenomenon raises profound questions about the nature of existence and the possibility of an afterlife. The callers are often confirmed to be deceased. In many cases, the voice on the other end of the line belongs to someone who has been dead for years, sometimes even decades. This undeniable fact adds an extra layer of mystery and intrigue to the phenomenon. Their numbers may be disconnected, or they may have died long before the advent of cell phones, yet somehow their voices find a way to reach out, defying the constraints of time and technology. It's as if the barriers between the living and the dead are not as solid as we once believed, and yet the calls persist. Despite the advancements in technology and our growing understanding of the natural world, these mysterious calls continue to occur. They serve as a haunting reminder that there are still many things we do not understand about the universe and our place within it. Perhaps one day we will uncover the truth behind these eerie communications. Until then, the dead will continue to dial and we will continue to wonder. Whispers, static, and eerie repetitions. Dead calls manifest in various ways. Sometimes the call is nothing more than silence, a chilling void on the other end of the line. Other times the caller hears static, white noise crackling like a dying fire. The most disturbing calls involve voices. These can be whispers too faint to decipher, or they can be clear repetitions of a single phrase imbued with an unsettling urgency. The chilling case of Charles Peck. One of the most well-documented cases of dead calls involves a man named Charles Peck. In 1988, Peck was working on a prototype for a new type of telephone exchange. Tragically, Peck was electrocuted while working on the system. In the weeks following his death, Peck's colleagues and family members reported receiving strange calls. The caller ID displayed Peck's name and number, but when they answered, all they heard was static. A son's sorrow, a mother's voice, my encounter. Even I, a writer of suspense and the macabre, have not been immune to the unsettling phenomenon of dead calls. Shortly after my mother's passing, I received a call. The caller ID displayed Mum. My heart pounded in my chest. I hesitated, then answered. The voice on the other end was faint, almost imperceptible, but I could have sworn it was her. She said my name just once before the line went dead. Beyond the grave, calls from the afterlife. The possibility of receiving a phone call from beyond the grave raises profound questions about the nature of life and death. Do our spirits linger after we die? Can they interact with the physical world using technology as a conduit? Or are these calls merely the product of our grieving minds, desperate to hold on to those we've lost? The Ball Brothers Crypt and the Phone That Rang. This is a tale that has intrigued historians and ghost enthusiasts alike for decades. One historical account adds another layer to this mystery. The Ball brothers, known for their pioneering work in the glass industry, were not just industrialists but also men of peculiar habits and beliefs. In the early 1900s, the Ball brothers, pioneers in the glass industry, had a telephone line installed in their family mausoleum. This was an unusual move, even for the time, and it raised many eyebrows. The purpose? To communicate with their deceased brother, Edmund. Edmund had passed away under mysterious circumstances, and the brothers believed that he had unfinished business in the world of the living. Legend has it that the phone in the crypt rang only once. It was a cold, foggy night when the eerie sound of the telephone echoed through the silent cemetery. The caretaker, fearing the worst, refused to answer. He had heard stories of spirits trying to communicate through modern technology, and the thought of speaking to a ghost terrified him. The mystery of who or what tried to reach the Ball family from beyond the grave remains unsolved to this day. Some say it was Edmund himself, trying to convey a final message. Others believe it was a prank or a technical glitch. But those who have delved deeper into the story are convinced that the truth is far more sinister. The phone has never rung again, and the crypt remains a place of eerie silence and unanswered questions. The Ball brothers' crypt and the phone that rang continue to be a source of fascination and fear, a reminder that some mysteries are best left unsolved. Rational explanations for the irrational? Skeptics argue that there are perfectly logical explanations for dead calls. They point to technical glitches, crossed lines, and even prank calls as the culprits. While these explanations may account for some cases, they fail to address the sheer volume of reports and the eerie similarities in the experiences. The unexplained calls, fear of the unknown. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of dead calls is their very inexplicability. We live in a world increasingly driven by logic and technology, yet this phenomenon defies rational explanation. It reminds us that there are still mysteries in the universe that science cannot fully explain. Seeking answers in the silence. The next time your phone rings and you see a name that sends chills down your spine, remember the stories. Remember Charles Peck, the Ball brothers, and countless others who have received calls from beyond the veil. Listen closely, you might just hear a whisper from the other side. Conclusion. The enduring mystery of calls from beyond. The phenomenon of dead calls continues to fascinate and frighten us. Whether these calls are the result of technological glitches, psychological phenomena, or genuine communication from beyond the grave, they serve as a chilling reminder of the mysteries that lie at the edge of our understanding. They force us to confront our deepest fears and to question the very nature of life and death. And as long as the phone continues to ring, the mystery will endure.